For this adventure, we left our children with Grandma and went on a 4-day, 3-night river rafting trip for 45 miles through the gates of Lodore on the Green River with the river rafting guide company Mild to Wild. This adventure began when we drove in our Tesla Model S to Vernal, Utah, out of range of all superchargers, and we camped overnight in the car on our hide-a-bed couch foam mattress at McCoy Flats Trailhead the night before the beginning of the river rafting trip. This map shows all the other adventures I've documented here on my YouTube channel. The drive out to Vernal is 162 miles, which takes almost 3 hours to drive. Upon arriving in Vernal, we first went to a restaurant for dinner, which was a short walk away from a slow 5 kilowatt level 2 charger to at least get some energy while we could. It ended up being unnecessary, but it was nice to have some additional safety margin. We then drove to the McCoy Flats parking lot to camp out overnight. The next morning, we drove to the Mild to Wild meeting place, which was a hotel parking lot. I had called ahead, and they were fine with me plugging in my Tesla to a standard household outlet at their building while we were away river rafting. We then boarded the shuttle van and drove 2.5 hours to the boat launch, stopping at the Flaming Gorge Dam for a break along the way. Then began our 45 miles of water adventure going down the Green River until we got to the Dinosaur National Monument. After riding the shuttle van back to the hotel, we then drove back home in our Tesla that had charged while we were away. Now on with the adventure. Hey Jess, what time is it?
Adventure time!
That's right. We are going on a couples trip without the kids. So if you look behind me here, there are none. So let's get on the road. So this is going to be our route out to Vernal. We've already been driving for a little while, but we've got 149 miles left to go, and that's going to be 2.5 hours. So we're going to be getting there just after 7:30 p.m. Oh, and also it's estimating that we're going to get to this area. This is the hotel. It has a restaurant in it we're going to be going to first. It's estimating 27% arrival. It's varied between that and 31% on this drive so far. So we'll see what the actual arrival is. I record these time lapses of our drives to show people who have never had an electric car the capabilities and nuances of driving electric. What you can't experience through video is the actual driving experience, which is awesome, but I can show how our 2015 Model S with 120,000 miles works for our needs, especially how we make it work in tricky circumstances like this trip where we don't have enough range to drive this distance round trip. But given enough time, we are able to charge from the slowest of sources, which is the standard household electrical outlet, or NEMA 515. Also, on this trip, we are camping overnight in the car with the climate control on, so that will consume additional energy. This drive was 2 hours and 38 minutes long, or 160 miles. It consumed 70% of our battery, or 54.69 kilowatt hours, which is 342 watt hours per mile, or 90% efficient. At the average of 10 cents per kilowatt hour, which is the retail rate for electricity in Utah, that's $5.47 worth of electricity, which it didn't actually cost us anything because we charged at the hotel and at home, and we have solar at home. Compared to a gas car with 25 miles per gallon, that would have cost us $21.71 more. The miles per gallon equivalent of this drive was 98.5, and over the course of the drive, we gained 5,846 feet of elevation and lost most of that going back down on the other side, ending up only 838 feet higher in elevation once we got to Vernal. It's now a few hours later, and we're getting to close to Vernal. We're 16 miles away, or 16 minutes, and the estimated arrival percentage is now 31%. It has gone from 21%. It initially was 29 and then went down to 21, and now it's at 31. So it's been varying quite a bit. In any case, we'll be getting there here pretty soon and see what our charging options are. Well, we got to the hotel here where we're planning on eating dinner, and this is the closest outlet that we could potentially use. We have 2 openings here for 4 standard household outlets. Looks like they could handle 20 amps, but I don't have that adapter. And then we have this one up here, which I am not as familiar with that one. I'll put here on the screen which one that is. I asked some employees and they said we're welcome to charge here, but this is kind of a slower outlet. And on PlugShare, I had seen that there was a faster charger down the road. So I'm gonna go check that out and see if that will work better for us, and then just walk back over here. On PlugShare, the original person who posted this location showed a NEMA 1430 or a NEMA 1030 outlet, which is a 30 amp outlet and 240 volts. That would have been fantastic. And I think I know where that was, but they've since removed the outlet from the side of the building. There's just an empty shell there now, so that's no longer available. So I came over here next door to a Shell gas station, and it has these two Clipper Creek chargers, so I'm gonna try plugging in, see if these work. All right, here's the two chargers, and it's a good sign that the power light is on. And so let's get this taken out. This is a J1772 plug on the end. And so I have here my adapter that came with the car. It's a J1772 to Tesla adapter. So I just have to put that here on the end of the J1772. And then let's plug it into our car and see if it works. Oh good, it's blinking green. Means it's charging. So let's see what the charge rate is. Okay, so it looks like it got up to 5 kilowatts. So 24 amps, 201 volts. It's really low voltage. This is probably supposed to be 208 volts, which is standard for commercial areas, but it's obviously got about 7 volts of voltage drop, which is kind of bad. And so it's estimating it'll be 21 hours to get to 100%, but we're just gonna be here for an hour or so while we're eating, so we'll get what we can while we're here. But 5 kilowatts is about 4 times faster than a standard household outlet. We are finished with dinner and we are walking back to the car, and we're gonna check on it, see how far it got charged while we were eating. And then we'll head to our campsite, which is about 6 miles south of here. Windshield wipers is one thing that Tesla superchargers do not do hardly at all. All right, well, we haven't quite left yet because I cleaned the windshield and stuff. So we're now at 37%. We are going to unplug and go. And it looks like we'll get to McCoy Flats where we're camping at 34%. The drive to McCoy Flats was only 11 minutes and took 3% of our battery to get there, which is the equivalent cost of 24 cents at retail rates. And that was a 102 miles per gallon equivalent compared to a gasoline car. You probably can't see very well in the darkness. This Osmo Pocket camera I'm using is not great in low light, but we are arriving here at McCoy Flats Trailhead, and it looks like there's some other people camped out here. There's a couple of RVs, and I think I see a tent as well. And then here in the middle of the parking lot is a pavilion, and then there's a bathroom there straight ahead. So we're gonna find a strategic location to park here and get set up. We're doing a little bit of planning for tomorrow, and we're going to be going up to a hotel here in Naples to meet the group that is the rafting trip. We are currently at 33% on the battery, and it is estimating that we'll get there at 3%. Sorry, 30%. So that would be 3%. In any case, it'll be a 20-minute drive and 11 miles. So we now know kind of what to expect there, and we'll kind of monitor the battery and make sure we obviously have enough to get there. But at this point I have no concerns because I've camped out before in really cold temperatures. I think it got down to like 12 degrees Fahrenheit, and it used up 18% of the battery overnight, heating the cabin of the car a whole night. Here the temperature outside is 82 degrees, so we're actually using air conditioning right now, and it's just going to continue to cool off. So I don't know how much energy we're going to end up using overnight, but it's going to be less than 18%, I'm pretty sure. I'm guessing more like 10% probably. And so we'll probably end up getting there with maybe 20 or so percent on the battery. So we're gonna get the bed set up and go to bed. Okay, so we're gonna switch over to camp mode in the HVAC system, and I think we're gonna start with 70 degrees and see how that goes. And then we're gonna put out the bed. All right, we have our bed set up here in the back of our Tesla. Obviously the rear seats are folded down. This is a foam mattress from our hide-a-bed, and it's a full size, and underneath it I have this piece of wood that is propped up on some foam there to try to level out because the seats are a little higher than the floor. And then this piece of wood right here. This is what came with the Tesla to cover the compartment underneath that in our case has rear facing seats. This is actually the first time I've ever used this cover. Ever since we bought the car, we've left the cover in our garage and just had the seats folded down into the floor here. But I actually used it this time to help level this out. So we're gonna see how this goes. This is our first time ever camping out overnight in the Tesla together. I've actually camped out in here before overnight twice with Lucy and Lydia, and actually I did it a time before that with Clara, but I didn't make a video about it. And so I'll put a card above to when I did that with Lucy, and then another card for when I slept in here with Lydia. Both of those were winter tests, and I was trying to see how much battery consumption there is when you're camping overnight in the winter and the heater is on all night. So go check out those videos if you're interested. In this case, it's a summer trip, but what we're testing here is having 2 adults sleeping in here and also this different mattress than what I used previously. Here's something that's kind of cool. I decided to adjust the HVAC system, and because we have cell reception on the car and the phone, I'm able to come in here and just adjust the temperature of the car without having to go up to the front screen here in the back of the car. This is a fun animation that plays on the center screen in camp mode for maybe half an hour before it then just goes blank for the rest of the night. During the night we had some additional people come and park in this parking lot overnight, but they were respectful and it was quiet and we slept pretty well. We definitely had a much better view in the morning than we would have if we had stayed in a hotel, and it was free. It is now the morning and this is our view out the back of the car. Definitely very desert sagebrush look. What did you think, Jess?
It was nice.
I mean, not as spacious as a hotel room.
Sure. It was not uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's climate controlled. We had it at 65 degrees all night. The battery was at 33% last night when we got here. And currently it is at 25%.
So it's about what you thought. You thought it'd be about 10%.
Yeah, I thought it'd be about 10%, and it was 8%, so not too bad. This is what the Tesla screen looks like all night. It actually is not completely off. It just says camp mode, tap to dismiss right there. So if I tap it, then it just comes up with our screen. And then over here, the ambient temperature is currently at 73 degrees. So we're just getting ready for our river rafting trip, and then we're going to drive back up into Vernal, which is a 20-minute drive away, and get plugged in there at the hotel. And I would say about this bed, compared to the air mattress that I used on the other trips, this bed is much better. It's quieter, and it's nice soft feel to it, and it takes up less space, so I'm not as close to the ceiling. So I do recommend foam mattresses if you can figure out one. This is a full, it's working fine, but it's tight on the inside. The inside dimensions of this car are actually only 3 feet 2 inches across, which is pretty narrow. So if you put a twin mattress in here, it would fit the narrow part, but then it wouldn't fill in on the wide parts. And with 2 people in here, a full is helpful. It's just in this narrow part in the middle, we're pretty close together. It's perfect for 1 person. It's doable for 2 people. But it is nice being climate controlled if it's really hot or cold, or if there's a lot of mosquitoes outside, then it is definitely nice to be able to be in a car and exclude all of that environmental variable from wherever you might be camping. We're going to be getting to the hotel at 21%, and that'll be a 20-minute drive or 11 miles from here. The drive this morning took 18 minutes and consumed 5% of our battery. And we drove at 100% efficiency, so it was 300 watt hours per mile and was 109 miles per gallon equivalent. We are to the hotel where we are meeting the river rafting crew, and here is an electrical outlet that the hotel said I could use here on the side of the building. It's just a standard household outlet, and luckily there's a parking spot here for us, so we're going to get plugged in. I've now plugged into it, and so we've got our cord running across the sidewalk here, which the hotel employee said would be just fine. Now I tucked it in underneath the car, and the car is already plugged in, and so coming inside, it's estimating, well, it's not even trying to tell us. I found that this estimate does not ever go over 24 hours. So I'm just going to go ahead and set the set limit though to 90%, because I don't want it sitting at 100% for a long time, and 90% will get us home anyway. And so it's charging at 1 kilowatt, which is 12 amps and 115 volts. So if you did that calculation, it's actually a little bit more than a kilowatt, so that's good. But it's going to take several days at this rate because we're at 20%. But we're going to be gone on a river rafting trip for, I guess, 4 days, 3 nights. So I think this will be done when we get back, but I'm not 100% sure. So we're going to just wait and see when we get back. Also, as a side note, we're going to be leaving things here in the car. Like I have some batteries, so I'm leaving the cabin overheat protection on, and I imagine it will kick on at some point at 105 degrees, I think it is, and keep the cabin below that. So that's going to consume some energy, so it won't charge as quickly as it would otherwise. We transferred our belongings over into these waterproof bags that they supplied, and then they loaded those onto the roof of the van in that rack you see there. And our group was actually pretty small. We only had one other family on this trip, and so we had a lot of room to ourselves in the van. There's Flaming Gorge down below us. Where are we, Jess?
Flaming Gorge.
Yep, we're at the halfway point of the drive to the head of the water where we're going to raft, and this is the Flaming Gorge Dam, and this is obviously the back side of it, and there's the water coming out of it down there, way far away. We've arrived at the Green River. We're about to put in, so we're going to get on the rafts and start heading down the river. We are starting on the trip, and that canyon straight ahead of us is the gates of Lodore. We are now entering the gates of Lodore. In the beginning, the water was rather calm, and then it started to get a little bit more fierce. The kayaking down a river learning curve was being experienced.
That was good. This is what I was expecting.
Minor mistakes were made. Before we got on the water, the guides had told us that if we were to fall in the water, to just ensure that we kept our feet forward in front of us so that we could push ourselves off the rocks if we came across one, and to just look for them, and they would point to where we should go. So at this point I looked forward and I could see the guy pointing behind me, and then I noticed there was the other guide in the raft behind us quickly catching up with us to bring us on board.
Thank you. How was that? That was... I didn't swallow much. I did choke a little bit though.
I just kept timing my breath for another.
After the other raft grabbed our kayak and we met back up with them, we got back in it and continued rafting downstream in the kayak. We ended up staying in the kayak that entire first day because the other family hadn't wanted to use it just yet, and we were having a good time.
That wasn't even bad.
Right, we should have done it harder.
Yeah. I was expecting worse.
The difficulty of the water definitely varied quite a bit, from calm pools to pretty extreme water that we were barely able to keep ourselves afloat. Both of us have ridden in kayaks before, but only on lakes and also rigid kayaks, whereas this one was more flexible than we're used to. And both of us have also ridden in canoes quite a few times. But once again, this water made the dynamic quite a bit different than we were used to. Jessica did not really like that sitting in the front. She got splashed in the face a lot more than I did, whereas I mostly just got splashed on my legs. What do you think, Jess? Are you having fun yet?
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, this has been great fun. We are camped out for the evening, and we are on this quiet little stretch of river on this beautiful sandbar right above Triplet Falls. You can see Triplet Falls is right there, which we'll be doing first thing tomorrow morning. It's a really peaceful area. And over here is the entrance to the bathroom. The paddle, when it's turned like it is now red, it means someone's there. And then there's a wash station right next to it. And if the paddle gets turned around, then it means it's unoccupied. It's up there in the cliffs. Our group only has 5 customers. Jessica and I are 2, and then there's a family of 3 over there with 2 parents and a daughter. We're all pretty quiet, and so this makes for a really quiet little group of canyon goers, which is great. They said normally they have larger groups and up to 25 often. Well, we've scouted out our camping location here, and this in front of me is where Jessica and I decided to set up our tent with this cool red rock backdrop to set up our tent right here in this corner. It is now the next morning, and behind me there is Triplet Falls, and it rained last night, a little bit more than we anticipated, but you know, things are not drenched, but everything's kind of damp this morning. But we don't need to leave for a couple more hours yet, so I'm pretty sure things will dry out pretty well before we need to go. After we got through the relatively calm pool right after our campsite, we then started off the day with a bang going down Triplet Falls, which is a longer series of more technical rapids, so there was definitely no riding in the kayak this morning.
Our first wet of the day.
Each time we were approaching a more difficult section of the river, the guides always had us pull over and actually hike down the side of the river first and look at it, and they would tell us what they're going to do and where not to go. And so that's what we're doing right here, just kind of scouting out the rapids upcoming.
I go right to the left of that and push as hard as I can to the bottom right corner of this like pool. I don't make it ever, you don't ever make it. You push as hard as you can.
One thing is for sure, these large rafts do a much better job of soaking up these giant waves compared to that small blow-up kayak.
Wrong side, Jess.
Every time.
We're going for a hike, I think, up into that canyon there. It's going to be about half an hour. So that's where we came from, down that river. Right down here, there's the boats. And that's where we're going to continue going. We've hiked up this trail up to here. What do you think?
Really pretty.
Yeah. This is Rippling Brook. How's it feel? It's my turn. Yeah, refreshing. Our guide's name is Mike, and he let me row the raft for a little while. And we went through some flat spots and through some rapids. I was surprised at how heavy this raft is.
Yeah.
They have an enormous amount of equipment packed into both of these rafts, and they are very heavy.
Yeah.
Being preoccupied with piloting the raft, I was a little bit too busy for camera work, but I still managed to capture some amazing shots for you.
Okay, we're good. I didn't see that rock before we came around the corner. Oh.
Eventually the water calmed down enough and the kayak did get some usage today. We spent a good portion of the day admiring the beautiful views and talking about rock formations and the geology that formed this area.
Yeah, cool campsite.
After arriving at our campsite, we unloaded the rafts and then worked on setting up our tent. We then went on a short hike to look at this view, which is just fantastic. That's where we came from, and we went around this corner. There's some really cool rock there, and then the campsite is just there in the center of the screen. This rock ledge coming across here is really striking. The Lodore layer. Some looming clouds came over the edge of the cliff, so we hurried on back down to the camp, and shortly there was another rainstorm.
He said this is the hardest it has rained all summer.
Luckily the rain did not persist, and eventually we were able to get the kitchen set up and our guides made an amazing dinner. The next morning we had yet another awesome breakfast, and then we packed up the boats and got back on the water. The first 2 days of this trip I was more judicious with my camera usage because I was unsure if I would have enough battery to get me through the whole trip. But by this point we were halfway through and I was starting to get a feel for how much battery my battery banks were charging the cameras in the evenings. So I was starting to do longer time-lapse clips so you can see what the canyon looks like over a long period of time. Our guide Marcus knew exactly where to stop and yell for an amazing echo effect in the canyons.
Alright, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yay!
We then stopped at Echo Park Campground, which is right there at Steamboat Rock, and went on a short hike to look at a cave and some petroglyphs. This was our only experience with a little bit of civilization on this whole trip, being that there was a campground here, but not very many people around. There were some other things to explore along the road, such as this cave, which happened to have a bat in it. This road is what the vehicles drive in on from the Dinosaur National Park, and it is quite a remote road by this point. There are side things to explore, like this little canyon off of the side of the road, and then we continued up our way to the petroglyphs. Upon arriving back at the rafts, our guides made us an awesome lunch. We then continued on downriver, and at this point the water was fairly flat, so it required a lot of paddling. There were still some rapids though. And then we got to the Colorado-Utah border and passed over into Utah. We are now crossing into Utah. There's the state line in front of us. And shortly after that, we stopped at Jones Creek. There's Jones Creek right there. And this is the trail up the side of Jones Creek that goes for a couple of miles. And right there is a beaver dam holding back the water. What do you think of Jones Creek, Jess?
It was cool.
It's fun. Yeah, it's very pretty. Lots of fish flitting about in the water. So now we're hiking back to the boat and the kayak, and we're gonna go to our campsite now. And then we continued on down through some really flat water and got to our campsite. While the guides worked on making our dinner, we worked on setting up our tent. Here's the river, and here's our tent, right on the shore. And there's the kitchen and the rest of the camp back that way. After their amazing dinner, we sat around the smokeless fire and chatted into the night and then went to bed. It's now the morning of our last day. This is the view from our tent. Looks like the water went down just a little bit overnight. Per their usual, the guides made an awesome breakfast. We had an earlier departure this morning because it was our last day and everyone had things they needed to get to, and some of them were a little bit earlier in the afternoon. So we packed up and got out of there as quick as we could. The first part of the day of rafting was much the same as we had experienced in the prior days, going through beautiful canyons and seeing amazing rock formations. We then came out of the canyon and opened up into this large flat area that took a while to paddle through. What do you think?
It's really pretty. It's so sunny today.
Definitely is that. So we're in Island Park, which is a long section of flat water, which means lots of rowing for Mike. Don't worry, I took my turn and gave Mike a break. After getting through the long slog of flat water, we finally entered the next canyon, and shortly after the entrance we found a nice sandbar and set up and had lunch. After lunch, we continued on downriver, and at one point I switched over to the kayak and continued on down through the rest of the journey to the end on the kayak.
Okay, doing fine.
By this point, the water was getting more and more shallow, and so there were a couple of places where we had to make sure to follow the water course where it was the deepest, otherwise we would bottom out. After 4 days and 3 nights of beautiful scenery, wonderful food, and some great company, we made it to the takeout point. We are back to our car from the river rafting trip, and the car did get charged while we were away. So nobody unplugged it, and that's good. And so I had it stop at 90%, and it got there at some point in the past, I don't know when, and then went down to 86%. And then when we were driving back, as soon as I got cell reception, I checked it and I changed it to charge again, because it lets it go down below the charge point a little bit before it recharges it. And so it's at 87% now. That worked out great to be able to charge here at the hotel at the outlet that you can see right there on the side of the building. And it charged from 20% to 90%. And I don't know how long that took, but I will put on the screen here how long that took, because in Teslafy it'll show when it finished charging at 90%. So now I'm going to get the car unplugged and we're going to get on the road. The car is estimating a 162 mile drive, which will be 2 hours and 55 minutes, and we'll get home at 6:06 p.m. and it's estimating that we'll arrive at 24% on the battery. Let's see how that goes. The drive home was 2 hours and 45 minutes, which took 78% of the battery, which was 61.6 kilowatt hours, or 370 watt hours per mile. The miles per gallon equivalent was 90. After 4 days of sitting in the raft or the kayak, it certainly was comfortable to be able to sit there in the seats of our Model S and just relax and let the car take us home. The car worked admirably for us, and we were able to go into this remote location without any fast charging with no problems. But you know, it's definitely not for everyone, and if we had tried to do this in one day, it would simply not have been possible. We have been to this area before when we went to Steinacre Reservoir, and I'll put a card above to when we did that trip so you can see that video. And in that case, we camped in a campground and were able to charge the car from a 50 amp outlet there at the campground. So we've made it work coming out here a couple of times, but I would not even attempt to do it if we were trying to come back quickly in the same day, because there's just simply not fast charging available in Vernal. We're home, and we got here at 7% on the battery. I must say, this is probably the least accurate estimated arrival percentage that this car has ever given us. I think initially it was around 25 or 24%. We had the air conditioning on pretty heavily, and I was driving as aggressively as traffic would allow, but you know, blasting up some hills pretty quick and past some people on the highway, etc. So we ended up getting here at 7%. In any case, the car ended up working fantastic for us getting there and back. Obviously the logistics are always a little bit concerning when there isn't a fast charge source like a supercharger anywhere close by. But the slow charge source worked just fine. We were there long enough, etc. And being able to plug in the hotel, of course, was the best there. And this just goes to show once again that a Tesla could work just fine in a location where there isn't fast charging, as long as you're there long enough. It would have been a little bit of a bummer if somebody had unplugged the car while we were away, and then we would have had to go to that 5 kilowatt charger that we used the first night, and we would have had to sit there and wait probably for a couple of hours to get enough charge to be able to get home. So in any case, it worked great, and we had a fantastic trip, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.